Good morning, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock, isn't it? It's been a long day already and it's only lunchtime. Please accept my apologies if there's any background noise. I have got my door open because it's so hot in here. I'm sure that we're going to have fewer people listening today. If they've got any sense, they'll be outside enjoying the sunshine. Just noticed that my daughter, who is outside sunbathing, has just logged on to listen. So I suppose we could get lots of people listening to us from the park or the beach. It's been another difficult week in the land of the council. We have managed to make some progress in the last few days in getting some of our emergency active travel measures in place. Notifications started last Saturday for some changes to the lower high street and Porky to make those more accessible to people and bikes. There is a consultation that you can actually complete online. It's really interesting. You're able to talk about whether you think this is a good thing, a bad thing, how it might affect you, because the way that this particular process is working is that the government require us to bring in these changes very, very quickly. Normally, you'd advertise a change. It would take weeks or months before that was consulted on, and then that would be considered and then go into place. The way that these emergency and experimental traffic regulation orders work is that they have 7 days notice. You open up a consultation. That consultation can last for 6 months, and during that time people can engage and we can adapt things. Any adaptation that we make, then we have to then make some consultation changes on. So there are businesses who have expressed some concerns about the closure of Paul High Street. There are other businesses who said this is amazing, this is going to bring forward a renaissance. So at the moment we're working really hard to make sure that we can take advantage of these new opportunities. So please do engage with the process, please do fill in the consultations, it's really great news. Okay, so first question is around public toilets. At the moment they're closing at about 5:30. We are moving to a 7 o'clock closure. That will require our staff to start work at 7 in the morning and finish at 10 at night. That is all we can reasonably ask them to do at the moment. So my suggestion is, if you are going down to the beach in the evening, please consider going before you go. But yeah, I recognise it is difficult with the kids. They will be going on till 7 o'clock very, very soon. We have a significant number of staff in training this week, and by next week we should be in a much stronger place. Hannah asks if dog wardens on duty. You need to be a bit more specific, Hannah, about a specific issue around dogs. We don't really have dog wardens in the traditional sense, apart from specific areas. So you might want to send a message about a specific location. If you're all talking about dogs on the beach, dogs are not allowed on the beaches other than in dog-friendly areas. Our signage shows a red and green about where the dog-friendly beaches are. You can also look on the website to see where dogs are welcome on the beach. But please do respect the fact that if it is a dog-free beach, there should be no dogs there, not on lead, not at all. And our beach wardens will move people on if they're able to. It's not always feasible to move everybody on. The beach wardens can't be everywhere. Who do I report a barbecue to Westcliff? A barbecue on Westcliff. Barbecues are, they're not allowed in certain places on the beach. I don't believe they're actually banned on the cliff top. So, if somebody's having a barbecue on the cliff top, it's not very sociable, but I'm not sure that it's actually illegal. I'll ask our comms department to double check that. Barbecues are a legal thing to do, but not on the beaches, apart from certain areas which are all listed on the website. Please, can you say why one of the councils is pushing for closure of the high street? Okay, Mark, you're fully aware of the situation with this. The lower high street is something which we've been looking to make more people friendly for years and years and years. If you look at our Future High Streets Fund application, a £25 million investment in Poole, you will see that the closure of Lower High Street forms part of that, and therefore, because that forms part of that, and because it's been requested by so many people that we close the Porky and the Lower High Street to allow lots of our restaurants to open up, and it spill out onto the pavements and allow people to go before small numbers of cars, it's a process that we're very, very keen to promote. I don't want to get involved with your comment about individual councillors. This is something that's being led by officers with support of the Cabinet, and comments are very welcome on the details around whether you support it or don't support it, from the purpose of, is it the right thing to do? So I think that's very interesting. Interesting that you think pedestrianisation, which isn't what we're doing, it's actually closing it to traffic, quite different. The pedestrianisation will push up the sale price. That suggests you think this is a good thing, because if the sale price goes up, then that's a good thing. But I would ask you just to please refrain from making those sorts of accusations. Do I know when we're able to reopen tennis memberships? Okay, so the problem with tennis is, apologies Brett, I do have an answer to your question from last week. It's sitting in my inbox along with about 500 other emails. The situation is that with the current numbers of memberships we have for our tennis courts, we are at 96% of capacity. If we actually increase the numbers of people with memberships on our public tennis courts, then the people who already have memberships have got no chance of getting a court. I'll speak briefly. My dad is a member, and my dad's only opportunity for booking a court this week was between 9:30 and 10:30 at night, which really wasn't an option. So we can't keep on adding to the numbers until the capacity drops down a bit. So, you know, we will reopen that for more members, but unfortunately we simply can't keep adding the numbers of people who can be members, and then you become a member, you pay your fees, and you can't get a court for 3 weeks. You'd be really frustrated by that. Mary Shell, you can register the birth of your baby already. That was agreed about 2 weeks ago, so I suggest you contact either Bournemouth or Poole or Christchurch, whichever your local registry office is. They are open. Poole has an additional facility to create better social distancing, because the building, the Guildhall, is very difficult to socially distance, so you can already register your baby. The Tuesday bike night. So Tuesday bike night has been suspended, as has all events on public land or organised by the council until the end of August. That was a decision that was taken a few weeks ago to make sure that we were not encouraging large groups or inadvertently causing some issues. There is no plans at the moment to change that approach to bring back any public events before the end of August, partly because we're already virtually in July, and actually these things take time to plan. So the other thing to bear in mind is that part of the quay is going to be closed to pedestrians. Clearly, if people have a motorbike and they want to come down to Porky, then they will come down to Porky, but there'll be no organised events until the end of August at the moment. If that policy changes, then we'll obviously let you know. Band practice. Can we do anything to support your organisation? If you're asking for financial support, probably not, unless you are an organisation that was able to apply for the small business grant if you have property on which you pay rent, and therefore you are the business rate payer. Then obviously, like any other charity, you are able to apply. You may have been able to apply if you have property costs related to business, but the scheme for business is closed. We're not in a position at the moment to fund any other organisations. However, there are organisations that are able to give grant funding, so I would suggest looking at whether the Dorset Community Foundation, whether the BH Coastal Lottery, whether the Torba Village Trust Foundation, whether any of those are able to support organisations at the moment. Toilets problem on Ashley Cross. Okay, so the situation with Ashley Cross is the toilets were closed 3 years ago by the previous council in Ashley Cross and many other places. The toilets in Ashley Cross were not one that was listed for reopening, because we were able to allocate just under £500,000 for a series of toilets in Poole to be reopened, in order that there was a harmonisation between the availability of public toilets in Poole as compared to Bournemouth and Christchurch. One of the reasons Ashley Cross was not opened or put on that list for opening at the time was because there is a large number of hospitality organisations based there, where people are able to have a drink and use their toilet. The vast majority of people who are using the premises in Ashley Cross are frequenting one of the businesses on Ashley Cross, and therefore there's a responsibility, and as a former cafe owner I know, if you provide a cafe or bar facility, you are required under the law to make provision for your own customers for toilets. Now, at the moment, we're in a very unusual situation. So that's one of the reasons why Ashley Cross was not listed as an area that required a publicly funded toilet block, as opposed to Whitecliff or Beta, where there is no facility, where you are going for a picnic, where you might go for a long walk, where you might spend the day. Now, the difference is that in this unusual circumstance, what we're seeing is businesses who have opened up for takeaway and for drinking off of the premises are clearly not able to provide toilets for their customers, although I'm sure many of them would love to. And for this short period of time, what we've had is this awful situation where people have gone drinking and then gone, oh, where am I going to go for a wee? And they're doing disgusting things. Why? I don't understand. But, you know, we've got to factor those in. So we have taken the decision to put in portaloos. They are in place, they are available. There is a unisex and a disabled facility on Ashley Cross available for people. However, Ashley Cross is causing a problem. There are people who are gathering in large groups. The police have had to be involved because actually these large groups are currently not allowed. So please be mindful that if you are drinking, you are allowed to drink outside in Ashley Cross. There is no public space protection order that prevents drinking in Ashley Cross. I've had that checked. You are able to eat and drink there, and you are able to use the publicly provided portaloos. I must stress the government were very uncomfortable and remain uncomfortable with councils providing portaloos because they do not provide the same facilities as a fixed premises, in that you cannot wash your hands after you've left the toilet cubicle, and there is handling issues. We have no choice there. They will remain in place certainly until such time as cafes and restaurants are allowed to open up on the 4th. From that point, I would fully expect that if you're getting a drink from X premises should be enabling you to use their toilet facilities. That should be the norm. Clearly, if you're going for a picnic on the green and you're not buying anything from the local premises, I would suggest you do. You need to support the local businesses. Then that this facility is there for you, and we will consider whether we need to leave it in place over the rest of the summer. Somebody said all events on the quay cancelled next year. Absolutely no truth to that. No discussions have taken place about what's going to happen next year. Events are cancelled across all of BCP until the end of August. Can I provide information on the traveller community? Okay, I knew this was going to come up. So let me clarify the rules related to travellers. Every year we suffer from unauthorised encampments of travellers who are moving through the area. It happens from about March until about August every year, and most seaside areas across the country are affected by this problem. We have two ways of dealing with this. As a council, we are legally required to provide a transit site for those people who are travelling through to stop at. We do not have a transit site anywhere in Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Until and unless we take the decision to build a transit site which people travelling from the traveller community, the Gypsy and traveller community, to visit, when they then turn up on a park or a car park and they impact on the rest of us, we legally cannot move them because we do not have somewhere that we've provided to move them to. Now that feels wrong. I understand that. I understand the frustration, and I've personally stood in my local park and had a full-on row with people to try to move them on. I've faced the intimidation. Most councillors have done their best to physically stop these encampments. The councillors worked hard to make some areas what they call target hardened, to make it more difficult, but those things then stop camper vans being able to use our parks, and then we have local people say, I drive a camper van, you're stopping me from accessing the park. Some of the places that they break into are car parks, and therefore, you know, that has an impact on us being able to use the car park. The situation we have here is that yesterday afternoon, Various people were reporting in travellers arriving. I was very involved with lots of the senior officers from about 5 o'clock through to about midnight in recognising there were several groups of travellers all arriving in different parts of town. The police did a great job and moved them on, moved them on, moved them on. Unfortunately, what then happened is the group have got ahead of the police and have collectively settled on Paul Park, have caused damage and are behaving in a very unpleasant way, and we've had some really unpleasant reports. There has been an emergency meeting with the police today. The law states that the council have to carry out a needs assessment. That needs assessment is basically saying the children and vulnerable people who live as part of the traveller community have a right to be assessed to make sure they are safe. We make sure there's nobody there that's being a victim of modern slavery, that there are no children who are vulnerable or not able being looked after properly, and there's nobody who is ill. Once that needs assessment has taken place, which we are required to do, and morally I support doing, we then start the process of a court order. That court order process will start and it will run its course. Most traveller incursions disappear before that court date because they know they're going to get an eviction order and they really don't want the aggro. Secondary to that, if there is a major incident, the police are able to invoke something, I think it's called Section 61, which enforces them to move immediately. There are thresholds that have to be met, and, you know, depending on the way you look at it, it feels to me like those thresholds have been met, but it's for the police to decide whether we have a Section 61 situation which allows them to enforce movement. Whilst those people are there, yes, they're breaking the rules. Yes, they're using the playgrounds which are closed. Yes, they are defecating in public, which is unacceptable. Yes, they have ruined our cricket ground. We recognise all of that. But actually, as a council, we have limits in what we can legally do. My request to all of you is lobby your MPs, because the law needs to change on this so that councils have more protection and police have more powers. Without that, we're going to face this all the time. The alternative is, as a council, we need to find a transit site. Somebody needs to be prepared to say, I don't mind having 15 sets of caravans coming down to my location every year and parking up 3, 4, 5, 10 times. If you know of somewhere that is happy to do that, rather than the rest of the community having to deal with this from time to time, please let us know, because we will gladly look at that. But bear in mind that other local residents will probably have something to say about that. It was tried before, it failed. Okay, so recommend where schools reopen. Okay, so some recommendations about schools curriculum. That's not for the council. Will cemeteries have the grass cut in between the graves too? Yes. So the work to cut grass was slowed right down. We are gradually reintroducing it, and there is a lot of work being done. Not all of the cemetery areas will be cut, because we are deliberately trying to encourage an ecological improvement to our cemeteries and other places. You might want to clarify the exact details of your own cemetery. Will we reduce parking costs to boost the economy? Sarah, realistically, no. Actually, car parking charges at the beach are going up as of the 1st of July to try and recover some of the money that we have lost. So at the end of the day, we are £32 million short, as I think I've told you every week. And with that, we have to gain whatever money we can. So it's unlikely that we're going to be reducing car parking costs anytime soon. The last 6 weeks, people have been telling me put car parking prices up, so can't win. Splash parks are not allowed to be opened. Anything related to water is not allowed to be opened under the regulations. 4th of July is the big date, so you'll have heard that hairdressers are allowed to open, hotels, Airbnbs, campsites are all allowed to open, but internal things such as swimming pools, water parks, spas, all those sorts of things are not allowed to be opened. They're going so fast. How long does someone have to wait to house with a gold band, high medical needs? Oh, Catherine, it depends what you're looking for. We approved this morning 14 four-bedroom houses, which are desperately needed in Kinston and West Howe. I understand that in Bournemouth alone, not Poole or Christchurch, there are 283 families waiting for a four-bedroom house. The average wait time for a council house for 4 bedrooms is 8 years. So we have just approved 14. Some people don't like it. They don't want another 14 houses in their area. Those 14 families are going to be incredibly grateful. But we can't build houses quick enough. If you've been waiting for 3 months, I'm sorry, you are able to bid as a gold band. Your circumstances are special to you, but it depends. If you're looking for a 3-4 bedroom house, you're going to be waiting for years. If it's a smaller place, it won't take so long. The government's encouraging visitors to seafronts. They want local authorities to respond with measures to ensure local distancing. Are we planning? What is our plans? Okay. So until the 4th of July, we are retaining our policy of asking people not to come to the area if they're not local. Our comms messaging has gone out nationally. We've actually said we don't want our pictures on the weather as isn't it lovely here. We do not want that. Until the 4th of July, we want to minimise the number of visitors coming from outside because at the moment there are no hotels, there's no campsites, there's no Airbnbs, you can't stay in your second home. So that's what we're trying to do. From the 4th of July, we have to expect and respect that our hotel industry, our tourism industry, is vital to our area. Social distancing measures are dropping from 2 metres to 1 metre. We as the council will respond to that and make sure that our facilities are properly socially distanced. However, it's not reasonable beyond that time when the government is saying that we need to open up for us to then keep saying stay away. From the 4th of July, we will be open for business, and the idea is that this period of time has given us the space to get ready for that. We have lots of signage, we have lots of queuing systems going in place. Even down at the ferry at Sandbanks, we've closed off all of the car park, but we're only back to part of the car park to allow people who are using the ferry to then queue safely outside of the traffic. One of the reasons that we're closing things like the Lower High Street and a number of other places around Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole is to allow more space on the pavement so that people can queue more safely, so that people can be persuaded not to get back in the car and safely go on their bikes. As people who are shielding come back into society, they're going to feel the need to have a bigger bubble around them. They're going to be very, very nervous. We need to make sure that we create that space. Those people are also going to be more likely to want to go by car, which means we're going to see an influx of cars. So the more people we can encourage to use their bike or to walk in their local environment, the better, because it will reduce that impact for others. Will the new pedestrian area in Porky affect weddings for Scaplan's courts? Okay, you probably want to, there are currently no weddings taking place over the summer where there is any sort of ceremony. We're expecting that weddings for the 2 people concerned plus their witnesses will be allowed to restart from July, but we won't be facilitating any weddings at our venues, so at the moment they won't be relevant. That's really not a question for now. Question about government fund to build more EV charger infrastructure. No, we don't prefer Range Rovers coming to Teslas. I'd rather we didn't have Teslas or Range Rovers. I'd rather you came in your Fiat 500 or walked or got the bus. At the end of the day, we are looking at EV charging, but we're also looking at preventing congestion, and that is about moving people out of cars altogether. We have quite a number of EV chargers in public places. They are all on a register, and people do have the ability to charge their vehicle. As the council tends to build more houses and flats, how do we get people to downsize? Christina, that's absolutely completely wrong. We build very few houses. The majority of what we're building is flats. Downsizing is a personal thing. You can't force someone to downsize, although there are people who are subject, if they're on housing benefit, to the so-called bedroom tax, which is about encouraging people through their benefit system to not stay in a house that's too big for them. I'm not going to get back into talking about the travellers again. I've completely covered that. You can go back and listen to that later on. Okay, what are we doing regarding Merrick Park and drug taking? I've reported this. You need to report criminal acts. It is not down to me or your councillors to actually report everything for you. We have a Police 101 system, we have a council reporting system. We have to start expecting the public to take that responsibility to say, oh, there's a pothole, I'm going to go online, I'm going to take a photo of it and I'm going to report it in, so it's in the workflow. If the police don't know that there is behaviours going on or crimes being committed, they won't act on it. There is no point telling me that something is happening. You need to report it to the police. And more often than not, I'll report something because somebody's reported it to me as a counsellor, and they'll say there's no record of this ever happening. So please, 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 we've got to all take some personal responsibility. Cars parked on verges. We have a fantastic group of parking enforcement officers. They are out and about every day from early morning till late at night enforcing the parking regulations. They can't be everywhere. If people are parked where they shouldn't be, they will be ticketed, but they can't be everywhere. Sarah Louise, I'm not talking about travellers anymore. I've already mentioned section 61. You need to go back to that. Okay, travellers, no, so Peter, talking about the travellers trashing it, just to clarify, the site we have at Mannings Heath is for settled travellers. They have a right to that site. It's fine. Yes, there have been issues in the past, but they're perfectly well-behaved people up there, and they're not the same as travellers who have to have a transit site. So, okay, I'm not going to talk any more about travellers. So, no, not talking about that. Boscombe Cemetery, Gloucester Road Cemetery. Deborah, you've obviously got an issue with lots of people in cemeteries. It is not a huge priority for us to cut in between graves. We are working as hard as we can. You have to bear in mind 650 of our staff have been redeployed out of their normal job to do critical frontline services. We are moving them back. We will be running behind on lots of things. We've had the most incredible weather. The grass is growing. We cannot expect our staff to work any faster, and we have a £32 million hole in the funding. So therefore you will have to see more grass let to grow longer in more places, whether that's the side of the road, whether it's in some of the parks where it's not the direct area that you are using as a recreation ground. The alternative is that we pay for more grass cutting and your council tax goes up even more, and then people will be complaining they're paying more in their council tax. Yes, Jenny, the law needs changing. Too many people out there on furlough or out of jobs. It's not fair to reduce the council tax. No, why should we reduce the council tax? I don't understand. If people don't have a job and therefore they don't have an income, they go onto universal credit, they can then apply for council tax benefit relief. That is a policy that's always the case. If you'd lost your job last year and you were living on universal credit, you'd be able to apply to see whether your income meant you would get a discount on your council tax. So you can get a discount on your council tax if you meet the threshold for a discount on your council tax. The fact that people are on furlough, you get 80% of your income. 80% of your income would not give you a reduction in your council tax. If you're not going out to work, you're probably not paying fares either, and you're probably paying a bit less tax if you're on 80%. So no, the council tax isn't going to be reduced for anybody unless you meet the council tax reduction threshold. So the coronavirus testing site, yes, is on the Park and Ride and will remain there currently till October, longer if necessary. Okay, there's lots of very specific individual places. If you've got issues in your ward where something is going on, whether it's antisocial behaviour or you think some grass needs cutting, you have a ward councillor. Most of you have 2, some of you have 3. The purpose of your ward councillor is to deal with your ward councillor issues. It is not the job of the leader of the council to look at every individual issue in every single ward. So please, look on the website, find out who your ward councillor is, drop them an email and say, what are you going to do about XYZ happening at XYZ address? That's their job. You elected them to do that for you. They all work from home, they all have a laptop, they all know what to do. If they're not actually doing that for you, then you need to challenge why you elected them, because those sorts of things really need to be done. Blue badges. The rules on blue badges is we only give out free parking to blue badge holders that have a residence permit for free parking where it's relevant. You have to pay £25 for that. So if you live out of area, then no, you do have to pay to park. But of course you do have the benefit of bigger parking spaces that are closer to your location, and of course people who have blue badges are allowed to park if necessary on WLO lines where it is safe to do so. So you have other places that you can park. Okay, it's really difficult to actually watch a lot of these here. Are we collaborating with Dorset Council and Fire Service for the banning of disposable barbecues? We are looking at what the law says on disposable barbecues. They are already banned on our heathlands. we have to respect the fact that if you're coming here on your holiday and you're staying on a campsite, then you may need to have a barbecue to eat. If you live in a flat and you don't have the space on your balcony or in your communal garden to have a permanent barbecue, you may want a disposable barbecue. I don't think we should make the assumption that because people use them in a completely unacceptable way in the forest, where it will be banned because that's a site of special interest, then that using it in your own domestic setting should also be illegal. So we are looking at the rules on our public land, and we may be able to look at banning on public land, but on private land that would require a change in the law if you want to use it in your back garden. Okay, it's just gone past, so I am just about to finish up. Just to say, this week is Armed Forces Week. We have raised the Armed Forces flag at all three of our civic centres, and we're very proud to be part of the Armed Forces Covenant scheme. We've got some work being done around homeless veterans, so if you are aware of people from an Armed Forces background that do not have the same access to services, please let us know. Our Armed Forces Covenant team will be able to work with that. Over the next couple of weeks, you will see, in fact, with immediate effect, we have approved additional budget for more emptying of bins in public places, recognising that people are having more picnics or takeaway drinks because of the circumstances of not being able to eat in or drink in a bar or a cafe. So there is more bins that are going out there. Our staffing are massively increased on the beachfront. Please be aware there are still very limited, if any, facilities of lifeguards. That means that the primary role of our beach rangers, the first and most important thing, will be around safety. The reason you'll see a lot of them in their vans is because if they have an incident of first aid or a person in distress in the sea, in the absence of RNLI, it will be our beach rangers who will go to their aid. They can't do that if they're running along the promenade of 15 miles. So you will see people in their vans. However, they are out and about. They are trying to encourage people to behave better. Clearly, social distancing is going to be an issue, but social distancing is not the law. It's a guideline, and we cannot enforce people to stay away from other people. So the message remains, if you feel it's too busy out there for you, then you need to move on to somewhere that is less busy, where you feel safe. We cannot and will not enforce space. What we will do is enforce rules. So where dogs are banned, we will enforce, bearing in mind our capacity. Where cars are parked illegally, we will enforce, bearing in mind our capacity. Where barbecues are being had in the wrong places, we will enforce, bearing in mind our capacity. Where toilets need servicing, they are being serviced 3 times a day. Where people are urinating behind beach huts or worse, we will deal with that. But we shouldn't have to, because every one of our beachfront toilets, with the exception of one at the Southbourne end, and there might be Gordon's, Corner, Zigzag, one of those around there, will remain closed because the size of it means it cannot be made safe. But Camphor Cliffs is the last one to open. That's happening in the next couple of days. Then all of the toilets and on the whole of the seafront, our park toilets and most of our town toilets are open. So there is no reason for anybody to be doing that sort of thing. We will be extending the time they're open till 7 o'clock as soon as we have the staff to be able to do so. We have an FAQ page about the seafront on our website, so you can see any changes that are happening. But I would encourage you, if you are going to go out to the beach, do be mindful. It will be busy. There are parts of the beach that we as locals know are less busy. If you decide to head to the Pier Approach or Sandbanks or Branksome Chine, you probably would expect it's going to be heaving. So how about heading to the quieter areas? There's a really quiet bit between Shore Road and Sandbanks that hardly anyone goes to because it's a bit of a walk and there's no ice cream kiosk. Southbourne's a lot quieter. Flaghead's a lot quieter. Hamworthy Beach, Lake Pier, explore some of the other places in our area which perhaps locals would use more. I would encourage you to stay away from those really busy areas, because other people who are visiting here will be making heading there because they don't know any difference. So, that would be my advice. Take your sun cream, take plenty to drink, take plenty to eat. Make sure you go to the loo before you go. Check out where the nearest toilet is when you park your car, if you park your car. If you can get away with not driving, go, under your own steam. and bear in mind over the next few weeks we'll be bringing in more and more measures to help you to be able to do that. Please, please, please remember our current big plan, which is stay local, shop local. We're asking you to stay local to where you live. We're asking you to support the local shops, help them get out of this crisis, because we need them. Some of them have been there for us over the last few months, and we need to be there for them now as they start to recover, so that we've got a thriving economy next year. There's lots more to talk about, but we can't cover those today. But next week and the week after, we'll be moving to Thursdays. That's because I've got meetings that I can't get out of on a Wednesday. So Thursday, 12 o'clock, this will be promoted, so you'll be able to see what's going on. But as usual, remember, your ward councillors are your first port of call. Comms team are able to help wherever they can. And I will see you all next week.